This is brought to you by the George Jackson Grassroots Collective, a progressive organization in the new African independence movement that cultivates revolutionary transfer culture, liberating the minds through awareness and education, protecting and training our people while fostering unity as stated in the Code of Umoja. Welcome to the George Jackson Grassroots Collective Dialogue Session.
Peace and blessings, family. Free the land by any means necessary. I am the spokesman of the George Jackson Grassroots Collective, Ola Banji, Ola Tunde, and today we have a very special guest for our dialogue. Sister Rhonda, could you please come in and introduce yourself to the people?
Absolutely. Peace and power, everybody. I'm Rhonda Sekhmet. I'm a poet and spoken word artist out of North Carolina. I'm also one of the co-leaders of the Black Awakening movement.
Yes, beautiful, beautiful. What got you into your artistry? What got you into being poetic? And what got you into the Black Awakening movement? Did I say that correctly?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I started writing poetry when I was a child, but I didn't start performing spoken word until 2014. And I was motivated by what was going on, what I was seeing. Shortly after the Ferguson uprisings, that was actually my first time sitting down and watching a full Malcolm X speech. I'm ashamed to say it took me to 2014 to do that. But once I did that, I had a shift in consciousness. And my poetry that I had written for so long started to turn into more poems about what was going on with our people. They were a lot more socially conscious. I was more socially conscious. And so I started an organization called the Black Awakening Movement. And I also started performing spoken word. And my poetry and my spoken word is with the intention to educate, to inform, to enlighten, to awaken, to inspire our people, not only to see what's going on, but also to feel motivated to do something about it. So that's where my journey started. And ever since 2014, I've been performing and writing poetry consistently since then.
Beautiful, beautiful. What are some progressive things that the Black Awakening movement has been doing in the community?
The organization itself, so the organization started as a way to inform people of who we are as a people, one, and what racism really is, to understand racism systemically, not just to feel like it's somebody doing something to you because you're Black, but to really get to the root of it. So we did that by creating and distributing informational resources. We've had open discussions on topics related to Black people. Since 2014, we've done it every single week, Thursdays at 7 p.m. And it's still going today, where we're still addressing topics that are relevant to our people, and also guiding people into practical action steps that they can take. Because a lot of times once people become aware, they don't know what to do. A lot of people don't belong to organizations, so we're trying to help people guide people in that as well. And it's not a local organization. We started in Miami, but since then, our members have been in different locations. So we're not necessarily central to a specific community, but annually we do an event in a different city every year, just to kind of have that in-person interaction as well.
So. Yes. What is revolutionary consciousness? And then also, could you explain, do you guys, in a sense, tie this into the mental health of our people as well? Because when we deal with artistry, when we deal with poems and spoken word and different things of that nature, it speaks to an element in our psychological development, in our spirits. And so do you tie in mental health with your work as well?
Yes, my background is actually in mental health. I got my bachelor's in psychology and my master's in social work, with the intention of being a counselor. And I did that for a couple of years. I branched out and offered a more culturally appropriate form of healing. And I ran a healing practice called Lionheart Life Healing, starting in 2015. So mental health is very, very important to me. And it also helped me on my journey because once I became conscious, knowing steps to healing was very, very important, because once you become aware of certain things, it can be very mentally taxing. If you do any type of revolutionary work, it can cause it could cause a number of things, but PTSD is one thing that we face because this is a war. You know, racism isn't just this thing that's going around, it's a war that we're in. And even though a lot of it is psychological, it doesn't mean that it doesn't have tremendous impacts on our psychological and physical well-being. So I think that mental health is very, very important for revolutionaries. And the way that I see revolutionary consciousness is being aware of this war that we're in, and also having the type of awareness that will motivate you to do something. Because it's not enough just to know information and to know facts. You have to have the type of consciousness that makes you feel like you can do something. And to me, that's revolutionary consciousness, when you know that you can change things and you direct your life towards that.
Absolutely. What more practical steps would you like to implement moving forward in the future?
For myself or for our people?
Along the terms with the Black Awakening movement.
Well, I wouldn't take time on here to talk about what we'll be doing in the future. That's what we take time for our meetings to do. But one thing I would like to see in general for our people is to develop a more stable consciousness. I think a lot of us have come across a lot of information through social media and other means, but it's not solidified. I think we need more educational institutions, and we need this information a little bit more organized so it's stable within us, where we're not just learning facts here and there, but we have a more deeper, solid understanding of what's going on through educational programs and educational systems. I think that that's very important, because the more that we know, the easier it is to deal with what's going on. So.
Absolutely, absolutely. Low intensity and psychological warfare. Can you explain what that looks like?
Yeah, we're definitely under psychological warfare, and we have been for a long time. The media, the educational system, now social media is influencing how we think and how we act and how we behave. And this is, you know, very obviously very intentional, very organized. And it's happening to us as on a daily basis. And I think for those of us who are, you know, able to look and see, and even if you haven't studied, you know, psychological warfare, if you just take a look back and, you know, ask some questions about why are we seeing certain videos, why are you seeing, you know, certain articles circulating more than others, why are you seeing these images with the big captions, and it's always talking about the same thing over and over and over again. We're under that. And psychological warfare is very important to me because, like I said, mental health is very important to me. So I think if we learn how to take back control of our psyche, we will be so much better off as a people, because a lot of what's being done to us is psychological. There's a lot of physical things going on as well, but I don't think the physical things would be happening to the degree they were happening if psychologically we were more aware of what's going on, and we also knew how to counteract these things. And even if you do know what's going on, it doesn't mean that you're not susceptible to psychological warfare either. You know, just the trauma of what we're dealing is an attack on the mind. And sometimes it causes us to revert back to acting against ourselves, you know, which is a form of self-destruction through internalized oppression. You know, we internalize the things that our oppressors say to us and do to us. And a lot of times we do them to each other, or we do them to ourselves. And that's, you know, I try in my poetry to talk about that aspect as well, because I think that's important for us to see. So, you know, in the process of psychological warfare, I think that art is one way to counteract that as well. And I would love to hear from other people as well. I don't like I don't like talking as much, but we could go through more questions.
Absolutely. And understanding your artistry and what you just said with the psychological warfare, could you speak to the state of music that we currently experience here in Black America now, from the Sexy Reds and the Megan Stallions and the trap music and the so on and so forth, because understanding you coming with some revolutionary music and vibrations and spoken word and different things of that nature, what would you have to say about that?
Yeah, I think the state of the music is really bad. I mean, we kind of seen it, like we've seen the decline of our music over time. And I think in my generation, as I was coming up, there were still some things that to kind of, you know, balance it out. There were still some artists that brought some consciousness and some healing and some balance into the music industry. And I feel like this generation, even though I don't listen to a lot of music, I don't know, but from what I'm hearing, they don't have a lot of that balance. It's just very bad examples in terms of what's in the music industry. And that's very intentional. Music is so important to our culture. It's so important to us spiritually. It impacts us on a spiritual level. It impacts us on a psychological level. And it's also just, you know, in plain psychology, it's a repeated message. So anytime you're hearing a repeated message, it's going to have an impact on you. So it, to me, is devastating. I feel sorry for this generation because it's harder for them to counteract that because they don't have a lot of alternatives. So I think more of us, there are a lot of artists out there now. When I say not a lot of alternatives, I mean not a lot of alternatives in the mainstream, but there are some incredible conscious artists out there that are putting out really great music. Every day I'm trying to, you know, find more artists like these, because I mean, I'll come across some dope ones. And I think that those who see what's going on with the music industry, and not saying that we don't need to spend time condemning what's going on. We do need to do that. But we need to also understand it's orchestrated, it's part of the plan. It's not the children who have created these artists. Even the artists themselves, I think, in some ways, don't completely understand what they're doing. And I know some people would debate about that, but a lot of them come from very traumatic situations and they're being manipulated as well. So I think that we need to spend more energy uplifting the artists who are putting out that right kind of music and exposing our young people to that music. And it's easier said than done. And they may not get it the first time, you know, they may hear the artist and not like them the first time or whatever, but we got to keep doing that over and over again and giving them some alternatives, because if we don't, we're continuing to be a part of this, continuing to be a promotion of those artists that we don't want to see. And honestly, I see more about those artists from people who do not like those artists. I see them complaining about them. A lot of these artists I wouldn't even know about, you know, some that you named, if it wasn't for the people complaining about them. So I think, not saying again that we shouldn't condemn that, but I think we also need to spend some time promoting the artists who are putting out music that our youth need to hear, and exposing our youth to other things, musically and culturally.
Could you explain your spiritual beliefs and how that also impacts your work as well?
I don't like going too deep publicly about my spiritual beliefs, but I will say that my introduction to African spirituality has been one of the most life-changing things for me. And one thing that's important to me is my connection with my ancestors, you know, realizing that my ancestors aren't some people in the past that lived and died and they have no relevance to today, knowing that that's not the case, knowing that my ancestors are alive through spirit, and that they are literally alive in my DNA, is something that has been very impactful on the work that I do. Because I think that the work that we do collectively is not just for us, it's for those who have come before us, who have put in the work so that we can be where we are today, and those who will come after us, to contribute to the future, to contribute to our descendants. So I think that spirituality, African spirituality, is very important to me. In terms of the details of that, I don't, that's something I usually go more in detail about on a personal level, but that definitely is important to me.
Respect, respect. I'm in the same boat with you, sister. Understanding that as a collective, for those that take up the revolutionary sacrifice on behalf of our people, what tips do you have that will allow us to obtain and maintain mental health?
Yeah, I think that number one, we all need to take breaks. And I've heard, even seasoned elders say that, that we need to make sure that, we're taking breaks. And a lot of us don't do that because this issue that we're dealing with, unlike most situations, is ongoing. Like it never stops. So you could literally be doing something 24/7. But you have to take time for yourself. You have to take breaks. You have to take time away from social media and the news and all that stuff. You have to give yourself a mental break as well, not only a physical break, a physical retreat, but also a mental break from hearing those things all the time. I try to unplug at least once a week. No social media, staying away from technology as much as possible. I think that, and that has helped me for years to maintain balance, because if you're constantly listening to the same things over and over again, and you're constantly doing something again, it can become very taxing. There's a lot of other things we need to do. Another suggestion is spending time in nature. I think that's very important for us as a people. That's our natural selves too. Is being in nature, but it's very good for mental health. And again, because we live in a world where there's so much technology and so many distractions, it's really good to get away from that and be in nature, which I think is also a way of being close to God as well. I think also that there's a lot of individual healing work that we have to do. So sometimes that could be done through therapy and other forms of healing. And there's also a collective healing that we need to do. I think we need to have more groups, more sister circles, more brother circles, where people are coming together and talking about what's going on with them and being able to heal through that, and to talk to other people who are dealing with what we're dealing with. Because I think that's one thing that's really hard in this. If you're not around a lot of other people who are doing the same type of work, and who are also committed to growth, then sometimes it's hard to even, articulate, communicate what you're going through. Writing is another thing, of course, that I use, that's been very helpful, is to write about it. If you gravitate towards writing, you could do this through journaling. You could do this through free writing, just writing the first thing that comes to your mind. And of course, through poetry. That's what I teach. I teach people during my monthly workshops how to overcome any barriers to writing poetry, how to enhance your creativity. And we write together and we share poetry together. And that, to me, is a form of healing. It's been very healing for me throughout my entire life. Poetry has always helped me to cope with some hard things and to express myself, and to get those feelings out. So I always encourage people to do that, because it's free and you don't need anybody else to do it. You can just grab some pen and paper and write. So that's an easy way. And again, it's not, the only thing, but it's one thing that can help in the process. So the creative consultations, that's just one service that I'm offering as a poet. So I do most of my poetry, I'm performing or sharing poetry is the majority of what I do. But I also recently have extended the offer to help poets who want to improve on their craft. I get requests from time to time of people who, some of them are just starting out, some of them have been writing poetry for a long time, and they want to improve on their craft. So I do that through my workshops, but I have been requested to do that more so on a one-on-one level. So that's a new offer that I'm offering to people who want to have that service and who want to take their poetry to a different level. And also just finding things that you enjoy, kind of setting up your self-care routine. Self-care looks different for different people, but making sure that you have structure. Like, you know, a lot of people have structure for everything, like, you know, work and other things. Make sure you have structure for, you know, your self-care and community care as well. We need to be checking in on each other is important as well.
Absolutely. Could you speak to any poets directly who have influence over you?
I think the interesting thing when I came into doing spoken word is when I first started, I honestly did not know the legacy I was coming into. There are so many poets, Black poets from the past, who have done something similar to what I'm doing, and you know, not comparing myself to them as well, but at all. But I realized that this is something that's been going on for a long time, you know, and what I'm doing is not original. And so one of the poets that I felt really connected to once I learned who he was Gil Scott-Heron. It was like finding my father. I'm like, yeah, this is it. What he talked about and how honest and raw he was in his poetry and in his music really inspires me, keeps inspiring me to this day. And there's so many other poets I could name. My poetry is also influenced by leaders. You know, it's not just poets, but it's our Black leaders as well. Like I said, this journey kind of started for me with Malcolm X. And even though he wasn't necessarily a poet, what he imparted onto my consciousness influenced my spoken word. So, and my poetry in general. So, I've been influenced by a lot of people. Some of them aren't alive anymore. And some of them I'm just meeting for the first time. So.
Absolutely, absolutely. With that being said, as you said, a lot of your work is influenced by leaders directly. And you mentioned Malcolm X, and I heard you saying, you know, in 2014, you actually listening to a Malcolm X speech and how that influenced your consciousness and everything like that. Understanding what Brother Malcolm was preaching and professing and actually doing in the community, could you speak to the importance of political education? Because when we talk about Malcolm X, we're talking about the son of the Garvey movement. You know, understanding that his father was killed on the basis of what he was implementing in the community based off his crusadership for the most honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey. Could you speak to the importance of political education and how that influenced revolutionary consciousness?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, you know, that's just one of the basic things that we need in order to do any work is a solid political education, which is easier said than done. And as I mentioned before, it's something that I'm hoping that we can get more organized in doing. I think that I've seen a lot of people, you know, in the movement who want to do something. Even me, when I first started, I use myself as an example. When I first started, I did not have a good political education. I stepped into consciousness very quickly, but I had not read enough. I had not studied enough. I did not have an educational system to go under immediately. So it took me some time to develop a working political education, and I'm still developing that. You know, I think that's a continuous process, but I think that it's imperative when you're doing the work, because I know for me, a lot of mistakes were made, and if I would have had the type of political education I needed, those mistakes wouldn't have been made. So I think it's important for us to have that before, I would say before doing the work, but sometimes it's hard because there's so much urgency and what needs to be done. And I know once I got an understanding of what was going on with our people, I just felt I felt that I need to do something immediately. So sometimes with that, there's things that need to be developed. And thankfully through my poetry, there are some things that came to me that I don't even think I had a full understanding of yet. And I don't know if that makes sense to people, but it's that's why I'm saying I feel like ancestors are involved in the process as well, because some of these things I'm just really grasping, now, some of these messages. So, and understanding them on a deeper level. That makes sense.
Right. Being able to address a lot of those traumatic experiences throughout our bloodline, and being able to reconnect with the missing pieces along our DNA and different things of that nature, being able to just ground ourselves and being able to have that understanding and being able to have full circle, and political education is very important because being 21 years old myself, a lot of the things we would overlook if we didn't have a revolutionary conscience to be aware of what's going on around us. Many of our people are so content with the things that are going on in society because they don't have an understanding or awareness of what is actually going on. So a lot of things play out in our face, but we're so blindsided and psychologically brainwashed that we don't understand, and that unfortunately continues to keep us in the same position that we've been in for quite some time. I will also ask, do you have any revolutionary poetry prepared tonight that you would like to share with anybody on the Zoom? Do you have anything?
I got
I definitely wanted to hit you with that. I didn't want to blindside you with that, but I definitely wanted to, if you had any pieces lined up, if you had anything that you would like to share.
Yes. So this is the album. The Awakening is 11 tracks that I wrote after having this journey of awakening and coming into consciousness. That's why I named it The Awakening, because these are the poems that came to me early on my journey, and what led me into doing spoken word. These poems just kind of started coming to me out of nowhere, and I started sharing them with as many people as possible. And just recently, last year, I was able to put them into a spoken word album. So that album, The Awakening, is available on all streaming platforms. I have physical copies of the CDs, but I only have a few left with that as well. And I think Brother Ghazi was saying to wait for the poem to the end, so I'll let y'all decide when y'all want to do that.
Sure. We can definitely hold that to the end. So based on the work that you have done, is there anything that you would say has been successful so far?
Yeah, I think one thing for me that I love about my organization is the consistency that we've been able to have. I have seen, a lot of organizations rise and fall over the past 10 years when I started. So I think consistency and presence is good. Also bringing community together. The Black Awakening movement hasn't just been, an organization for me. It's also been family and community, which I think is important because I think in the process of all that's been done to us, we've had so many bad experiences. So it's very, I think it's healing, and it's also productive to be able to have good community experiences and build family with people who aren't your blood family. I think that's important, and I think that is a step towards building something larger. A lot of my success has been, what I consider to be success has been very small, what do you call it? Those the one-on-one impact. When someone tells me that they've been influenced by something I've said, something that they heard during one of our discussions, or just from a personal interaction, and also from doing one-on work with people, one-on-one healing work, and other types of assistance with people, just seeing people's lives change from something that I helped them with is a form of success for me. And it's like, it's things you don't necessarily see out in the open. You don't, it's not these tangible things, but to me, that's a form of success. So hopefully that answers the question.
Absolutely, absolutely. Touching back on the youth, I remember you speaking about, being able to uplift those who do put out positive images and positive vibrations and different things of that nature. How can we get our youth, how can we draw them to more revolutionary consciousness that's provided by people that may not get the attention that they need?
I think it depends on what type of interaction you have with the youth. I think in general, to, if you're a parent, for instance, play that music in the house or in a car. A lot of children are listening to what their parents are listening to. So we have to, acknowledge that as well, and making sure, again, that we're setting good examples. If it's youth that are outside of your family and you don't have that same, contact with, I think exposure is still the answer, but I think it has to be done in a different way. So you may have like a free youth concert, or you may have you may give away a free merch or something to the youth in order to expose them to that. Or if you're doing an event where youth are involved, to expose them to different type of music and artists, even maybe even have the artist there. With spoken word, even though it's different from music, I'm trying now to do a lot more things that are focused with the youth. I've been able to do that a few times, but not as many times as I like. Where we're just having an event that's just for the youth. It's focused on them, and surprisingly, they listen. I didn't really think that spoken word would be something that like real young people would be interested in, but they listen. Sometimes they listen more than adults, and are able to give me feedback. So I think just having different ways, creative ways to expose them to that. And again, you may not get them on the first try, but we have to continue, because we're fighting against a whole organized media industry. So it's a lot of work to come against that and to introduce something different. But I think if we organize and we put the effort into it, that we can do something about it to counteract that. So.
Absolutely, absolutely. What is the importance, speaking towards you, what is the importance of educational institutions and liberation schools?
I mean, I think that if we don't have the education, especially alternative education to what's, the educational systems that exist now, that our children are going to continue to be, for lack of a better word, brainwashed. They're going to continue to get information that does not teach them the truth about our people or about things in general. We know that the American school system is not the best school system, period. But especially when it comes to Black children, we definitely have to have some alternatives. Even if they're still going to be in the school system, we need to have weekend programs, summer programs, other things outside of that, because that shapes who they are. Well, what the children are learning in school, of course, is going to shape who they are, and how they function in society as an adult. So if we're not teaching the youth what they need to know, then that is going to be our future. So whatever we're teaching the youth, whatever we're putting into them, we're putting that into our future. So we definitely need educational programs, and there are educational programs. I'm not saying that this is something that doesn't already exist. I've seen quite a few that I'm very proud of. So I think we just need more of it. And those educational programs need support too. They need funding, they need people. So we need to make sure that we're supporting them as well.
Absolutely.
So I'll share a poem. He asked for a revolutionary poem, so I'll share a piece called Revolution. And this is from the spoken word album as well. I wrote this, I would say it's probably between 2014 and 2015. And so revolution has been, you know, a lot of times people ask the question like, what is revolution? What does that mean? And so this poem is my answer to that. Do you want a revolution? I said, do you want a revolution? Viva la revolucion. Words I uttered before I knew a revolution was possible in my own country. I never knew this country had weaknesses or weak points, loosened joints. I never knew, see. No one told me about the Black Revolution. No one told me that the Black Panthers were revolutionary. They just told me that they were kind of scary and they wanted white people to die. I wonder why a media and education system will work so hard to hide the truth all along. It makes you wonder whose side they're really on. See, revolutions don't just happen for political power gain. A revolution is what happens at the end of years of pain, when you can no longer stand by watching your brothers and sisters die. It's that voice that says no more. It's that voice that asks, what are we waiting for? See, a revolution is not just arms, it's revolution of the soul. It's that 360 mentality from there's nothing I can do to there's something I could do to I will do anything for freedom. It's what happens when the sleeping are awakened, but they say revolutions produce nothing but an unstable nation. Well, I'd rather have instability than aggression. I'd rather have disorder than organized aggression. I'd rather have bloodshed for justice than bloodshed for injustice. I don't know what they want from me. I never wanted to be a revolutionary, but they won't give us our rights no matter if we beg, plead, or verbally fight. I'm sick of seeing us suffer and die for no reason. It's time for a new season. I did not create the need for revolution, the oppressor did. I did not create the problem, but I will see to its end. Don't let your fear tell me I have other options, you see. I'm either gonna die a slave or I'm gonna die free. I can't expect anything out of an oppressive system but more oppression. After centuries, have we not learned our lesson? In order to get rid of racism, you have to get rid of a system built on racism. People too stuck in their comfort zones, too comfortable in white picket fence homes. But beware those who have nothing to lose, because those same ones, when awakened and let loose, will do whatever it takes to finally be free. And if the revolution doesn't start with you and me, it will start with the one who says no more, who knows what's worth fighting for with less to lose. And when they wake you up, you won't be able to hit snooze, because the revolution will not be televised, because only lies are televised. This revolution will not be revised, because this revolution will open everyone's eyes. My patience isn't growing any longer. I feel the unrest growing stronger. I feel unity and solidarity in the midst. My people, your people, were done with it. Right after the evolution will come the revolution. Do you want a revolution? I said, do you want a revolution? Because if you don't want a revolution, I suggest you hurry to find a solution.